Welcome, Mrs. Meridew, Pub Heckler, Gina Scalzi, the Tea Lady, the Ambulance, the Hiker, Penny Pepperbean, the Duke's late mother, and Susan Triad, to episode 516 of an Unearthly Podcast, streaming live on the 15th of June, 2024, and featuring The Legend of Ruby Sunday, written by Russell T. Davies, and starring Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor and Millie Gibson as Ruby Sunday. I am Bill Sylvia, the One in Black, and I am way too poor for these heat waves. With me are co-host Alex Fireheart.
Are there any other Susan Triads I should be aware of?
And acting technical director Aaron Romeo Moon-Burke.
Hello, I am caffeinated.
Mad Matt Winchell is continuing to deal with moving homes this week, or I forget if that was public knowledge or not, but he is indispensed and will not be joining us today.
Or if he does, he'll be late in any case, because I'm seeing he's online now.
Oh yeah, so maybe he will be joining us.
Yay!
We
depend.
we weren't sure, but he is on Discord now, so maybe he is joining us. So how's everybody's weeks going?
Pretty good. I had a doctor's appointment on Tuesday. So I have high blood pressure, so I'm gonna have to be managing that. Not quite with medication yet, but I did have to order a cuff and take my blood pressure in the morning now. Also took my car into the dealership to get a tune-up. It was for the oil change and everything is free, and then they wanted to do a throttle body service, which my boyfriend Chris calls a single white woman tax. As in, they see you walk into the dealership and they're like, oh, hey, she's got free stuff, but we can get her to pay for stuff because she doesn't know anything about cars, right? And so foolishly, I agreed to this. And it said I got a text after dropping it off at like 12:30, because I was just going to sit there and read a book, saying, or not 12:30, well, I dropped it off at 12:30, got a text at 2:15 that the car was almost done, that she'd be out to give me my keys. 2:45, she hadn't shown up yet, so I asked the cashier, what's going on? Have I missed it? Was I in the bathroom and they handed out my keys or something? And they're like, nope, no one's giving you your keys. Go check on the agent if you want to. And I'm like, nah, it's fine. It's probably just something that popped up. And so then 3:30 rolls around, and she comes running out into the lobby. She's like, oh my gosh, your car's been done for a while now. I'm like, oh, okay. So she takes me
They're
over
like, why hasn't she come and picked this up?
Yeah. Like, she got involved with a bunch of other invoices, apparently. She had like 10 or 15 invoices sitting on her desk. Oh. It was so busy, and her sandwich was, I think, still there. It was wrapped up from like the afternoon and everything. She hadn't gotten a chance to eat. So what do you call it? She was apologetic enough that she paid my bill for me, because it was going to cost me this about $250 for the service that I wasn't quite sure if I needed it or not. So I got that for free, whatever they did to my car.
Oh, nice.
So speaking of money, I realized this week I'm getting paid less over the summer. I'm not sure if I moved to a higher tax bracket or what. But considering I had budgeted pretty much to the penny of my stipend. So I did the one thing I could do was I set up a Ko-fi, maybe pronounce it coffee account, ko.fi.com/oneinblack. So like, maybe somebody will buy me lunch, because otherwise I might have days or weeks where I'm not buying groceries.
Oh, wow.
So we'll see how this summer goes. Alex, any update with you?
Not much, just work and stuff like that. And like, I mean, I'll put it this way, I'm definitely glad that work was so flat out because I meant to watch the episode before work, but when I woke up, I'd gone to bed so late that I was like, no, I'm just going to sleep for another hour, thanks.
I noticed you normally watch it like the second it comes out, and this time you didn't.
Yeah, like normally I get to bed just early enough that I get just a decent enough amount of sleep that I'm awake enough to watch it before work. But this weekend I was just like, hey, no. It felt like if I stayed up, I was basically just gonna make myself sick. Like not vomiting, but like I could feel something in my throat, and I'm just like, you know what? I should probably just sleep for another hour. And watched it when I got home, and then while I did get to bed after midnight, I got to bed like just like not that long after midnight enough that I was able to get like 9 hours sleep and have plenty of time to do some stuff before my rewatch. So I was like, oh, thank God for that. This will probably be the most awake I've been for the podcast in a while.
All right. This week we have our birthdays and news. I believe we have a soapbox, although it's not on the outline currently. Do you still plan to do that?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay. So we have a soapbox and we have some geek talk. No review of Shame unless Matt shows up and is ready for it. At this point, I'm not holding my breath either way. And then we have our episode summary. We may have a chat about something related to the plot, depending on how we're doing for time. Then we have our review, final thoughts and ratings, and finally our predictions for the grand finale. So without further ado, to Alex with the birthdays.
Okay, so starting on the 9th of June, we have David Troughton, who is a member of the classic and modern club as King Peladon in The Curse of Peladon. He also played a minor role in the War Games, but I forget what the character name was because, again, it was fairly minor. And Professor Hobbs in Midnight, also the Big Finish Black Guardian, and also better known as the son of the second Doctor, Patrick Troughton, turned 74. On the 11th of June, we have Kit Pedler, the creator of the Cybermen and writer of their first 5 stories. Would have been 97, but died in 1981 at the age of 53. On the 13th of June, we have Simon Callow, who played Charles Dickens in The Unquiet Dead and The Wedding of River Song, and voiced was the voice of Tree Blethereen in The Gift, turned 75. On the 14th, we have a few. First up, we have Julia Joyce, who was Rose Tyler in Father's Day, turned 26, so baby Rose. Additionally, on the 14th, we have Martin Johnson, who was did music and sound design for 11 Big Finish stories. Would have been 85, but died in 2003 at the age of 64. Also on the 14th, we have Michael Ferguson, who was the director of 4 stories from 1966 to 1971. Would have been 87, but died in 2021 at the age of 84. Moving on to the 15th. First, we have Candace Brown, who was Sarah in 3 episodes of Torchwood Series 4. Turned 44. We also have Neil Patrick Harris, the toy maker in The Giggle, better known as Dr. Horrible and many other roles. Turned 51. And finally, on the 15th, we have Michelle Greenidge, who plays Carla Sunday throughout the current season, and
including this episode.
Yeah. and I would assume through until whenever Ruby bows out, turned 54. So happy birthday to David, Kit, Simon, Julia, Martin, Michael, Candice, Neil, and Michelle.
All right, moving on from birthdays to news, we start off with the ratings. First off, the overnight figures for Rogue are 2.11 million, basically the same as for Dot and Bubble. We also have the 7-day for Dot and Bubble, which is 3.38 million, which is a bit of a drop from 73 yards, but I think that was to be expected. It was the 24th most watched program of the week after 6 episodes of Britain's Got Talent, Race Against the World, 5 episodes of Coronation Street, The Great British Sewing Bee, 5 episodes of Emmerdale, 4 episodes of EastEnders, and Have I Got News for You. If you remove the repeat shows, that makes it the 8th most watched program of the week. Moving on to future episode news. I almost forgot which window that was in. There we go. We have our Empire of Death. Not much of a synopsis, but there is one, and cast list. The Doctor has lost. His ageless enemy reigns supreme, and a shadow is falling over creation. Nothing can stop the devastation, except perhaps one woman. So you have the Doctor, Ruby, Kate, Mel, Susan Triad, Rose Noble, apparently Harriet Arbinger. Oh, that's right. She wasn't dead at the end of this one. So we have Harriet Arbinger, Morris Gibbons, Colonel Ibrahim, Corporal Sullivan, Mrs. Flood, Carla, Cherry, Kind Woman, played by Cyan Clifford, and the Vlinks and the voice of the Vlinks. So Kind Woman is the kind of the big question mark here. That Russell T Davies says is on a distant planet, and is somehow vital to this episode. So we can talk about speculation on that. Well, yeah, maybe after the summary we'll talk about speculation, but that's the only real new person on this list. Next.
I just want to point out, I was wondering if Corporal Sullivan is related to Harry Sullivan.
Oh, maybe. I don't know if Corporal Sullivan is a returning character or a new one. And of course, when I try to look it up, I just get Harry Sullivan.
Yeah.
Although apparently Corporal Sullivan was in this episode that we just watched.
I think she's the soldier who escorts Ruby back into the time window when Sutekh attacks. Or
okay.
Enemy attacks. I mean, it's been revealed who the big bad is, so I'll try not to spoil it too much in that, but yeah. When the enemy attacks, I think it's because the other corporal, of course, is unavailable, or the other person is unavailable. So.
All right, next we have a note from Russell T Davies on the 3rd season. He mentions he's working on the 4th script right now for season 3. It's not actually commissioned yet. That's still up in the air, but that's the same for every TV program. He says, I shouldn't say we're confident because that's asking for a fall, but we're very confident, to be honest, and we'll just keep going. So they're preparing for the next season, assuming that it's going to be ordered by the BBC and by Disney Plus, but they haven't actually gotten that on paper yet.
Yeah. Which I feel like I read this ahead of time because I was curious and saw the whole for the time window they'd be for the time window they'd have to have the scripts ready by, because like the idea is Shooty's doing a play like through the near the end of the year into the new year, and stuff. So they'd have to and
The end
and all
of
this and
the end
blah.
of 2025, or
The end of this year through the start of next.
oh, okay.
So the idea is like there'd be no filming done in that period, which I feel like there probably wouldn't be anyway because it's the
Right.
holidays. But
And I mean,
um,
typically filming filming season 3 before season 2, I don't think is super common. I mean, before season 2 comes out, I don't think is
Mm.
super common.
yeah, I mean they do seem to be generally doing that lately. Like they're already in the process of like I forget if they're finished or at least they're mostly done with the filming on season 2. So it is a matter of like, is the idea just to get these in the? I guess at least this has a definitive thing now that we are getting Shooty for more than 2, because the assumption kind of was that he might, not that he would, but that he might only be doing 2. And I think the article mentions that RTD said like, no, he's good for a third one.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it might have just been do 2 very quick, so those are at least in the can. And if he needs to bow out, then we can have him bow out in a special. But if he wants to keep going, we can do another one.
Right.
I just want to point out, I know I've mentioned it before, but it's really weird to hear them talking about working on the series in advance, like season. I'm used to these giant gaps of nothing happening for the new show.
Yeah, we're back on the RTD schedule. Remember, a season every year.
For the most part,
unlike
anyway.
Moffat and Chibnall, which was maybe a season every 2 years.
Yeah.
If you're good, if you deserve it.
I mean, I think
Right.
Moffat was for the most part every year. It was just series 10.
But it was
just
half a
year
season
off.
at a time.
Ah.
It was not. It was like half a season, and then the next year half a season, and then the next year half a season. But let's move on to book releases. So the first piece, we have BBC News, and these are, I'm pretty sure these are I'm not. Yeah, they are Target novelizations. It doesn't. Oh, it does say that. Okay. 3 new Target novelizations for the 15th Doctor and Ruby have been announced for BBC Books. We have Space Babies by Alison Rumfitt, 73 Yards by Scott Hancock, who was former Doctor Who script supervisor. So I guess there is one outside of the showrunner. Bad Wolf producer, and he's also affiliated with Big Finish. Then we have Rogue by Kate Herron and Bryony Redman, who wrote the screenplay for the episode. All of these will come out on the 8th of August. Although this is causing everyone to ask, where's the Devil's Cord? And I guess they're also re-releasing The Church on Ruby Road, but it's not a new release, so I'm not going to linger on that. Moving from there, we also have some new books from Penguin. First is Doctor Who: The Official Guide, which comes out these all come out the 15th of August. Oh no, they don't. The official Doctor Who: The Official Guide comes out the 15th of August. So this is basically an updated guide to the show, but all the way up to the Ncuti Gatwa era. The sort of things that you release every few years with an updated version. They say, learn the difference between a regeneration and bi-generation, why you should never anger a meep, and always get cherry sundae, a cup of tea. I wonder if that's going to be relevant today. Then there's Doctor Who: The Official Annual 2025, which comes out September 5. It includes a new 15th Doctor story. This is so it's a companion book to the current season. It includes things like puzzles, quizzes, and games. And then there's Doctor Who 15 Doctors, 15 Stories, coming out September 19. So this is a late new anthology. They say the 15th and 14th Doctor stories are new, which implies that the other stories may not be. So this may be an update to past anthologies.
Also, is this would not be the same 15th Doctor story that's being offered in the other collection, is it?
Probably not, because they wouldn't. It says a new 15th and 14th Doctor stories, so that would probably imply that they're not repeating ones.
No, I mean from not from the previous collection. I'm talking about like the official guide. Doesn't the official guide here say that there is a new 15th Doctor? Nope,
The annual
that's
does,
the annual.
but they wouldn't be saying new. They'd be saying the same one from the annual.
Okay.
Moving from there to Big Finish news, we have Fourth Doctor Adventures Series 13 Metamorphosis, written by Aurora Fearnley, Matthew Sweet, and Lisa McMullen, and starring Tom Baker and Christopher Naylor. I'm not sure. All right, and then we have some news from Big Finish. So we don't typically cover a bunch of upcoming things, but this is basically the return of a major range, well, a relevant range, and that is Susan's War is coming back for 2 more series, or 2 more box sets, really. So we covered the first box set of Susan's War previously. There's going to be Susan's War Father Ties and Susan's War Grandfather Time, which will be released. Do they say when it will be released? There's a lot of padding, so I'm not seeing when they're going to be released, but they're officially commissioned. Oh, there we go. August 2024 for the first one, and to be announced for the second one. But this means we're going to see Susan alongside the recast version of the War Doctor at some point in this. And yeah, that's all there is to that. And that is the end of our news, which, well, we don't have a ton of so okay. So since there's only one Geek Talk, we have enough time for the rant because they can share time. Yeah. So the soapbox. Handed it over to Alex.
Yeah, this has been brewing for a week to the point that I almost forgot about it. But after Rogue aired, a bunch of websites started doing clickbait articles declaring that the kiss shared between the 15th Doctor and Rogue was the first same-sex kiss in Doctor Who history. Bitch, it ain't. Not even remotely close.
Yeah.
There's things you can call it the first of, but that's way too broad of a generalization.
Yeah.
Hell, even it's not even first same-sex kiss with the Doctor.
Yeah, the Doctor has been and even if you had to be like, oh well, we specifically mean on the lips, Jack kissed 9 on the lips.
I was gonna. The one thing I would say is that this one, the Doctor was clearly more involved than he was the one with Jack.
Right.
So there's that, but that sort of broad generalization, no.
You have to use a lot of qualifiers for this to be a first at all. You can't even say it would be the first interracial kiss because we've had to have had one of those by now. I'm blanking on a potential example, but well, actually no. I think when I brought that up as maybe you could, someone was like Bill and the Puddle Lady.
Oh, if you're saying that
from
if you're
Series
saying that
10,
with the Doctor, yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Building
because yeah,
his
like
doctor,
the headlines, the headlines were very
in Doctor Who.
like vague because it's like, and like what I equated it to when I saw that is this is like the same fucking selective memory type shit that I saw when like Moana was coming out and there were people being like, "Oh my god, the first POC Disney princess."
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah,
Like,
And
hello?
if you really want to talk, interracial same-sex kiss, I just posted in chat. So feel free to share that if you're not already.
But yeah, like I guess that's more interspecies, but not that that's something that Doctor Who has ever thingoed before anyway. But you know, like even if we're talking like, you know, I'm pretty sure even in classic the Doctor is technically more platonic than ever romantic, but I'm pretty sure even some of the classic Doctors would like give a companion a peck on the cheek or something. Still technically a kiss. It's not full on the mouth, you know, romantic or lustful at all, but still technically a kiss. Not with any men, mind you, back then. But yeah, there's been a decent number in like, again, it's like, it's funny. It's like RTD was the first showrunner when it came back. Of course there's been same-sex kissing in this show. Like, come on. And hell, within the Chibnall era, I can think of two offhand. Neither involved the Doctor, but these clickbait articles were just saying first same-sex kiss on the show, not first same-sex kiss involving the Doctor, which, again, inaccurate. But regardless, but you know, Praxius has a same-sex kiss. And Jack kisses Graham. So even within the era that we just came out of, I can think of two examples very quickly.
So unless they're really going with, well, you know, obviously the show started in 2023. This is a brand new show.
Yeah.
That's the only way they could argue. And even then, I mean, I'd have to think about it.
I mean, again, if we're specifically going, no, it has to be a kiss on the lips. Maybe that was the first same-sex kiss of this thing. But like, 15 did like give 14 a kiss on the cheek. So, you know, that was in one of the specials. So that's technically, I mean, again, not romantic. It was a platonic peck on the cheek,
Right.
But it's still like, that still counts. Like, so it's funny how just it's like, and like, I'm pretty sure I even saw a fucking video title on YouTube that I didn't watch it, so I could be wrong in assuming it. It's why I wouldn't name the channel even if I could remember the name, but was very like, oh, they finally did it. And I'm like, finally did what? Like, this has happened on the show before.
It
like,
seems almost
again,
desperate for clicks, like you said, clickbait.
Yeah, again, clickbaity, and it's just like, yeah, like the amount of qualifiers you have to do.
It sounds like these are the same sorts of websites that did the Vegeta finally beat Goku articles when when Vegeta won a sparring match in the Dragon Ball Super manga.
Yeah, and like the people who were saying that Black Panther was the first black-led Marvel adjacent, like Marvel-related movie. MCU movie? Yes. But Blade exists, and so does Steel. Which Steel isn't
Steel is DC.
Marvel, but it's still like comic book related. So
what was Mantis? I don't know if you guys remember Mantis.
I do not remember a Mantis movie.
Okay. Sorry, Alex.
But yeah, it's like it's that kind of reductive thinking that it's like, well, you're forgetting all this other stuff that happened. And, I mean, I would love to know if those articles have made it to RTD so he can basically chew people out.
I
Because
know.
I have to believe he would.
I know there was a tweet about it that John Barrowman replied with a photo of himself kissing Christopher Eccleston underneath it. So
yeah. So it's like, yeah. Get your facts straight before you make that kind of shit. And like, again, if you wanted to say it was the first same-sex interracial kiss that happened to involve the Doctor, that was actually on the lips, okay, with all those qualifiers added, that would probably be correct.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, no. But yeah, so I don't keep going, we'll just leave it there.
Yeah, you say that was on the lips, and without context, my first thought would be, and where were the other ones then? They would be more scandalous. All right, so you said you're set with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I will move on to Geek Talk. And this week I managed to watch Star Wars Tales of the Empire, which I know has been covered on this podcast before. So Tales of the Empire covered two stories, basically, two 3-part stories. The first was the backstory of Morgan Elsbeth, who is a character who is, by my understanding, has a major role in the Ahsoka series. I know her from that one episode of The Mandalorian that Ahsoka was on, because I still need to catch up with everything and watch Ahsoka.
Yeah.
But so we see her basically coming from the massacre of the Battle of Dathomir in the Clone Wars, when the Separatists finally went after the Night Sisters for sheltering Asajj Ventress. We see Morgan go from there to basically being the character we know from the live action shows, dealing with the New Republic. So that's what I like about this this format is there are 3 separate episodes per story, and each one has a noticeable time gap in between them. The second story is the story of Barriss Offee, who is who in the end of the Clone Wars had kind of been arrested because she had framed Ahsoka Tano for a murder, because she was growing disillusioned with the Jedi. She gets recruited as an Inquisitor, and then kind of realizes that, oh shit, even though, I'm in this dark space and I'm actually, getting farther along with their orders than the typical Jedi might, this really is not fitting with my morals and is not what I want to do. And it kind of leaves with her in a position of, well, if another author wants to use her, they could say she's alive, but otherwise they can say she's dead. I would say I enjoyed the full thing. Like I said, I liked the story with the way that it's set up with the time jumps. At first, I thought it was going to be like 6 completely different stories, and I think that would have been a lot less satisfying because we actually see, consequences of each story since we're seeing these 3-parters. I don't necessarily. I mean, I probably don't recommend them unless you've watched those other shows that I've mentioned. And I'm seeing more and more pushback, both in the Marvel and in the Star Wars front, on people not wanting to watch these serialized stories. As somebody who watched the Clone Wars, watched Rebels, watched The Mandalorian, and watched Obi-Wan, I would say that, I enjoyed these. They were kind of placing things in between things I've already watched. But if you're, if you haven't watched a lot of the Star Wars stuff, then you might find it a bit trickier to connect with what's going on and with these characters.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably my end of that. So then moving on to the summary. see. Here are my notes. And I'm ready for a countdown whenever.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I forgot I was in charge of that. Damn it. Let me bring up the stopwatch.
Okay.
And also let me bring up the window capture again on that. Alright, and 3, 2, 1, go.
We start with the TARDIS flying instead of materializing into Unit HQ. The Doctor and Ruby pop out, and a round of introductions occur, including Rose Noble, Harriet the Archivist, and Morris the new scientific advisor. No word of what happened to Shirley. The Doctor then shows them a montage of Susan Twist appearances, and just as the Doctor is asking Unit to find her in the modern day, they cut to a feed of Susan Triad, CEO of Triad Technology, who's planning to give out free software, and of course happens to be Susan Twist. They discuss that not only is her name as Triad an anagram of TARDIS, but her name is also Susan, which may connect her to the Doctor's granddaughter Susan. Unit has not found anything untoward in Triad software, and the Doctor explains that he wouldn't recognize Susan from a distance like this because of Time Lord regeneration. At the end of the presentation, Kate reveals that they're actually watching a hacked link to Triad's rehearsal. Mel is also undercover with Triad and has been doing checks to make sure that Triad is human. The Doctor then explains they're also looking for Ruby's mother and explains the snow around Ruby. Ruby and Rose head to the Sunday household to pick up the security footage from the night Ruby was born, at which point Carla joins them to return to Unit. They get Mrs. Flood to watch Cherry, and then after they leave, Flood refuses to get Cherry tea and says ominous things about the one who waits. They bring the security tape to a time window that Unit's barely got functional, but with the extra input from the tape and Ruby's magic snow powers, they can get more details. The woman who dropped Ruby off is still hard to make out and is seemingly glitching. And they mention that even the Doctor's memories of that night seem to be changing. The TARDIS from the church on Ruby Road arrives, and the Doctor remarks that the TARDIS is more solid than the rest of what they're seeing. The woman, presumably Ruby's mother, or at least person who dropped her off, points to the TARDIS, and then Colonel Chidozi, the security officer for the time window, goes behind the TARDIS to see why. The past TARDIS dematerializes, and a large black cloud envelops the space where it was. Carla makes a reference to the impossible planet, and then something happens to Chidozi in the cloud, and then when the time window gets turned off or crashes, he is now just a pile of sand. This leads the Doctor to decide he has no choice but to meet with Susan Triad and find out what's going on. Nothing, he doesn't seem to be connecting, but she mentions bad sleep and dreams. So the Doctor mentions episodes from this season, which she then recognizes. Back at Unit, the black cloud is now appearing on the tape, and Harriet is examining it to understand it better. They find an image of the TARDIS in the cloud and realize that whatever it is has been invisibly surrounding the TARDIS for some time. They evacuate the room, and the Vlinx is able to find evidence of a life form on the outside of the TARDIS. At the same time, Triad is giving her address, and she's getting distracted by the conversation with the Doctor from before, and the fact that she seems to be hearing a voice. The Doctor orders Ruby sent to the time window, and then Harriet is revealed as the harbinger of the one who waits, who she also reveals is Sutekh. Triad takes on a new form as one of Sutekh's servants who can kill anyone she touches. And then Sutekh appears in the form of a giant dog dragging around the TARDIS. And the episode cuts to cliffhanger for the next episode.
All right. That you did that in 4 minutes, 11 seconds, 89 nanoseconds?
Looks like they're hundredths of a second. So it'd be like
Hundredths of a second.
890 or 890 milliseconds or something. That's why I just say 0.89 seconds.
Okay.
I feel like there might have been something a little bit after that, but by that point it was too chaotic for any notes to make sense. And then it's hard to remember in the heat of the moment if there's more. But that's the important part, right? Everything else is the cliffhanger. All right. Now we move on to the episode. Or actually, no. So first off, is anybody planning to greatly talk about Sutek and what they like, dislike, favorite scene, or least favorite? I'm guessing not you, since you wanted to talk about it separately.
As far as Sutek specifically goes, probably not.
I think it was going to be
In
part of
any
my least
existing
favorite
one.
scenes. Which apparently I only have one thing written down for least favorite scene.
Okay, so how about then we'll go through the review and then anything else we can bring up in our final thoughts. If
Yeah,
that's
that
the
works.
case.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we move on to the pecking order, starting with what we liked about the episode with Alex.
I guess I liked that for the most part, aside from the way the TARDIS shows up at the start, that the episode really isn't all that actiony. Like, which I guess makes sense because, as I even like said elsewhere in text, that this feels very much like a setup episode as opposed to a like just a fully formed episode on its own kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be kind of weird if this was overly action heavy necessarily. Granted, Doctor Who has done that before in the modern era. But yeah, it was nice that this one was more building up the mystery and then the reveal and all that. So it was nice to have it a bit more, for lack of a better term, grounded.
Okay. Yeah, I get that. The action is mostly talking.
Yeah. It's a lot of conversations and, ooh, this is happening and blah, and like even when that one guy dies, it's not in a sort of actiony moment. It's just in a more of a, ooh, here's the looming threat kind of a moment, rather than like people running about and all that kind of stuff.
True. Although there was a lot of yelling.
Yeah.
All right, Aaron, what did you like?
I had several likes, but I'll go with this one. The fact that they kind of really fleshed out the team with Unit, or the team of Unit. We see a lot more characters. We get to meet Morris. Of course, there's Harriet. And we see that Rose is working
Not
there.
for long.
Yeah. Well, it could be like a Susie thing with Torchwood, where I can see Big Finish going back and doing like a bunch of adventures with this version of Unit, with Kate Stewart and everyone having adventures. I can totally see that because they're so adamant about naming everybody. I can't remember, there was one dude that she even pointed out, like at the beginning, how he's gotten buff.
Ibrahim, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, they have pretty much the makings of a Big Finish series right there at the very least. Of course it would always be kind of fun to see it done as an actual television series too. An actual spin-off.
Which there's still rumors of that, but nothing confirmed.
I thought they were making, because hasn't there been long-standing rumors of a Unit series, like even back in the 70s they were thinking of making one?
I'm not sure. I'm thinking specifically of since the Disney partnership.
Yeah, because I could have sworn that there was like there's just a really long just a rumor that's really old from like the 80s or 90s about them possibly doing a unit series, or that could also be back in the Davies era. And that may have been what became Torchwood. So, yep, but that's mine.
I think I'm going to say this. It really feels like the cast is well used. So I'm not one of the biggest fans of like keep returning to modern Earth all the time in Doctor Who.
Mm.
But what I'm less of a fan of is when they keep returning to the modern day Earth, but then they never use anybody that they know who could help them. And here, like you have like your domestic, like you know your the Sundays, you have your unit, you have your nobles, and you know they're all kind of working together to be part of this finale, which it's the finale of an 8 episode season, or it's the finale of a 12 episode arc starting with starting with the Star Beast. Because I mean there it's uh well yeah, I mean there's references to stuff definitely from before the 15th Doctor at a minimum.
Yeah.
So yeah, and of course the unit setup was all from from the specials as well. So it's I like the way they use the cast. And they all seemed to be relevant in their own way. Right. We had the new character Chidozi. He had a very specific role. I don't. There didn't necessarily have to swap out Shirley for Morris. There might be a behind the scenes reason why they did, or there might be a reason that has to do with next episode for why they did. You know. Similarly, I know some people are like, "Oh, what's going on? Why is Donna missing?" On the other hand, sometimes I'm like, why is Rose a necessary person after evacuating the floor? But either way, all the characters, their personalities play in and their roles play in. Nobody's just kind of standing around. So yeah, I like the way they were used there. Oh, and this is also a good time to mention Colonel Ibrahim. He doesn't seem, I mean, other than just being like he's like the Benton of the new unit, but the in Pyramids of Mars, Ibrahim Namin was the name of the high priest of the cult that had to do with Sutek. So maybe Colonel Ibrahim is in some way related to this cult.
Either that, or it was like
I think they were supposed
a nod
to,
for people to clue
right.
in.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I could definitely, especially with some of the Easter eggs we've gotten that I thought were a little far fetched, or I guess RTD would call them breadcrumbs. I could kind of see I could kind of see these that as an intentional breadcrumb. All right. From here, we move on to what we disliked about the episode. Alex.
Okay. The actual setup does kind of bug me the more I think about it, because it does feel weird to be like, oh, I guess we're just finally gonna come back to Earth and finally start bugging Unit about this. Because I don't know, I feel like I would have preferred this to just happen, like most other things in Doctor Who usually do, where they just happen and it's not a matter of, oh, well, we've got to, for the story to get moving, we need to go to Unit so we can have all this happen, rather than it just coming up naturally in a story. Other than that, like maybe they were trying to look into other stuff and then it came up.
This feels like a least favorite scene to me.
I just mean like the whole. It's not so much the scene so much as the notion that the episode hinges on the fact that the Doctor just decides, well, you know what, I'm just going to go to unit for this one.
Mhm. I think I'm going to agree with you there. It's from right off from the beginning, I'm like, okay, so she's all over time and space. So you're going to go to 21st century Earth to people who aren't supposed to have time technology, and you're going to go to them with your question?
Yeah.
Like, I get you can't go to the Time Lords, but like, surely the TARDIS has better technology than UNIT.
Yeah.
It's like there's got to be someone better to ask. And I mean, and maybe it's all an excuse to be like, oh well, we wanted to include UNIT in the finale. But you make a good point. Like they could very much have been like, oh well, we were looking at this VHS tape in Carla's house and suddenly realized that UNIT might have a VCR. Like that would have been more in line with the way a Doctor Who story typically might start with something.
Yeah. Or even just like starting from UNIT's perspective, keeping an eye on Susan Triad, and then the Doctor just happens to show up and get involved because it's like, oh hey, that woman like looks like that woman that me and Ruby have been seeing everywhere, rather than
right
the way that they actually handle it.
Yeah. Because it kind of comes out to the Doctor is just like, well, I've tried nothing and I'm all out of ideas.
Yeah.
So let me go to 21st century humans. All right, Aaron, what did you dislike?
Overall, I disliked how they handled Mrs. Flood for a moment. I kind of thought that she was going to be someone else, and it was kind of another red herring, another kind of theory online that hasn't panned out yet. I mean, she could still be, because the theory I'm thinking of, someone had mentioned the Rani, that she could be the Rani, because Rani is an anagram. They mentioned anagrams in this episode, and the Rani is an anagram of rain. And of course, rain is linked to flooding.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, they do mention anagrams in this episode, so maybe Mrs. Flood could be the Rani. Who knows? So, I mean, they keep mentioning Susan, the granddaughter, but they also mentioned the fact that he's got a daughter, which is going to play into my predictions part of the podcast here later on. But yeah, I would have liked a little bit more information. It's obvious that she's probably linked to the big bad here, because she talks about him finally arriving. But then there's also a lot of water, and I don't remember a lot of water being associated with Sutekh.
Well, there wasn't really water. There was, like, she said a storm is coming and there were dark clouds.
Yeah.
But yeah, his Sutekh's more associated with sand and such, I think.
It could be that she's one of the entities that Sutekh kind of listed off, too. So, I'd have to...
Harriet did?
Yeah, I'd have to, like, listen to that list again and see if she matches up with anything. But that's mine, so.
Okay. So you dislike that we haven't gotten a full confirm about who Mrs. Flood is yet?
There's just a little bit more of an idea of who she is, but
Yeah.
I guess maybe I understand that they couldn't do it. I have one other thing that I didn't like about the episode, but I don't want to take it away
I was
from
really
anyone.
hoping that she was just nobody.
Oh, yeah.
That it was just like, well, now that the toy maker's rules are in effect, she can break the fourth wall one time and then never again.
Yeah.
I mean, I did kind of grow to love a theory I saw somewhere where someone assumed that it's like, okay, we've got physical embodiments of things. Maybe she's the physical embodiment of the red herring.
Right. guess we're on to me, and this could always change depending on how next week goes. But I really disliked right now that they used Sutek.
Mm.
The first thing that comes to mind is that means that the stupid theory that because they reused that plot point in the Devil's Cord, that meant Sutek was coming back. That was a very bad train of thought, and I hate that they justified it, or even maybe that was the reason it was included, which is even worse. And especially given the fact that the entire season was pretty much except for 2 episodes was written by one guy.
Mm-hmm.
Gives all the more indication that maybe it was all on purpose to hint at that.
Yeah. So what
another,
was the hint, Bill? You kind of lost me.
That they went back to 2024 and saw the destruction. Okay. Just like they went back to 19XX in the pyramids of Mars.
Okay.
Yeah, which I brought up when we did cover that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember you mentioning Sutek, when we reviewed some of the previous episodes. I thought it was just like a theory you'd seen online or something like that. So.
No, I mean I had seen people theorizing, but it was because of that scene.
Okay.
But yeah, also just like I feel like Sutek is so like he's such a it's such a beloved episode that it makes sense to be one that stays as a one-off. Like it was a nod to the Mummy. Like we're not doing the horror movie pastiches with every episode currently, so it doesn't make as much sense to bring it back. I would have rather the Gods of Ragnarok, which I think Harriet mentioned the Gods of Ragnarok because they mentioned like the trifold god of like these whatever 3 concepts, and I was like, well, the only trifold god we've seen in Doctor Who was the Gods of Ragnarok. I think they, especially with the whole what was it, the God of Gods or whatever, like it doesn't make sense to me that just a death god is the lord of a pantheon. And there's so many things that would have been more fitting. So partially out of just respecting Sutek's place in Doctor Who history, and partially out of thinking that he doesn't fit. He was presented as a false god initially, and and all these other things. It's weird to be roping him into this new context.
Yeah.
There you go. It was threefold deity of malice, mischief, and misery.
Yes. Which, I mean, I think that fits Greatest Show in the Galaxy pretty well. All right, on to favorite scenes, Alex.
Just because it felt very, very much like a Doctor moment, I'm going to go with 15 laughing at the time window. When he sees it, just like that's
like,
rough.
This is rough.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that is like I could see most doctors, maybe not like laughing that loudly and blatant, and some of the other doctors would have more of a, God, you're so useless, aren't you? More kind of a reaction. But
I was waiting for the word primitive.
Yeah. Yeah, that was very fun. Especially like Kate in the background being like, "You fucking asshole." Just like trying not to yell at him.
All right, Aaron.
My favorite scene, I think, is going to be seeing the possessed TARDIS just before the big reveal. Like, everyone's looking at the TARDIS with fear. Now, something that was always such a warm and welcoming object to behold now suddenly becomes sinister. They even changed the lighting of the TARDIS they darken the blue on it to make it look just like I said, more sinister, and the windows
Yeah.
seem to kind of glow, and the light on top
Mhm.
seems to kind of be a little more dull, and yet kind of it just seems a lot scarier. Like something that was supposed to be, really cool and awesome is just, yeah.
Mhm.
So, and it was just, I thought it was really cool.
That was mostly an impressionist thing, I think, because like obviously early in the episode the TARDIS didn't look that way, so I think that was more
Mm.
representing people's fear and knowledge than anything Sutek was doing.
Mm.
So I think I'm going to say the actual scene in the time window, because it's such a creative way, like it was such a creative way to go back to the past. Um,
Mm.
we can't actually go back to the past, so we're going to use this technology. The technology doesn't work, but wait, if we add this, I'm going to say it now because it wasn't true in this for Classic Who, but now this super outdated piece of technology,
Mhm.
and it gives enough information for that to work. And like as somebody who works with data, I love that fact. I love, just the way that I saw the behind the scenes on it. They were, I like how they set everything up in Unreal Engine, and then used the whole like screen projection thing we've been talking about.
Mm.
So it's almost as much of a time window for the actors as it was for the characters. I just thought that that whole thing was well done.
Mm.
Um, I feel like, oh, and also the fact that that may have been foreshadowing things.
Mm.
Given the fact that the Doctor has Ruby sent back and to the time window, and also he was talking about how, wow, that TARDIS looks really solid. It kind of implies that maybe Ruby is going to be jumping into a TARDIS from the time window, which would be
Mm.
really good use of foreshadowing if that's what they do.
Mm.
Or less. I mean, it's foreshadowing, but it's very specifically a Chekhov's gun in that situation.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I will
All right.
even say like a backup that I had if the Doctor like laughing about the time window had been taken before it had got to me, because obviously I didn't know what the order was. My backup probably was going to be, has unit got a time window? "Oh, you told us not to do that. Have you got one?" Yes.
Yeah, that is such a Doctor Unit thing to have
Yeah.
to do.
Hmm.
All right, least favorite scenes, Alex.
Uh, hmm. Let's see. I've got one, but I'm like, that's a bit on the nose. Can I think of a different one? Um, hell, I'll go for it. And it's not even that it's because I didn't have the reaction to it that they didn't, not that they didn't want. I think I would assume anyway. The reveal of Sutek's name from the Sue Tech thing. That
Ah, yes.
I was cackling at that, and I'm like, that's probably not the reaction that he wanted me to have, but I just could not stop laughing.
Oh, you know what?
Like,
That could have been a bump. It could have been that scene, and then this is so like I'm pretty sure it's a South Park clip, right? This is so dumb, you guys. This is so dumb.
uh, it's like, yes, subtle.
It's-
uh,
so the whole triad thing was completely meaningless. The
mm,
important part was
another red herring.
Sue,
Yeah.
which I mean, I guess okay. You know what? They did kind of foreshadow that, and it was like when Mel called her Susan, she was like, "Call me Sue."
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but the whole thing with S Triad did not fit with that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like that
Yeah.
felt so forced.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess again it's another red herring to be like, oh, maybe Susan's gonna be in hit. No.
Just imagine RTD in the room with himself with the other writers, aka himself, coming up with that.
Hmm.
All right, Aaron, what's your least favorite scene?
Least favorite scene. I only wrote one thing down. Like, apparently I didn't think to write anything else down. Although the stuff you guys pointed out were pretty on the nose. They're pretty good. I'm just gonna say that I don't like the Sutek, whatever the fuck that thing is draped over the TARDIS. I thought that Susan's makeup and Harbinger's makeup were okay. It's your typical. They're a little cliche, like skull face type minions, and that. But like the freaking bat thing was just not the greatest. It wasn't. It was. It's not terrible, but it's on the cusp of really not being that great. I found it kind of cheesy, just and kind of cheap looking, honestly. Just the way that they try to hide the limited mobility of the head and everything, just by having the rest of the body wrapped around the TARDIS and that. So, and it doesn't really look that intimidating to me. It's got like four or six eyes on it instead of the usual two, and they're all glowing, and it's feels like they try to make it menacing, but it's like a scary. I've seen puppets that are scarier on kids shows, honestly, and that. So it felt like they wanted to make it like cool and intimidating and stuff, but they didn't quite have the talent to pull it off, or they pulled their punches because they're trying to approach this as more of a kid-friendly PG show, so they didn't want to make it too scary. So,
I mean,
yeah.
to that end, it is kind of funny that they went for red eyes when the original Sutek in the show had glowing green eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's
I figured they decided there was enough of a redesign that was not relevant.
I mean, it would have been cool if they'd gone with the green eyes and just stuck more with it. But yeah, I don't know. Like there's one image I have where the mouth is partially open and it looks like a giant dog face. It looks like someone's pupper dog. Like, oh, that's so cute. And that obviously it's a giant bat with the wings wrapped around the TARDIS and like the ears and the snout and everything. But I think that's what it's supposed to be, is a bat-like thing. And I didn't really see Sutek as a bat-like thing. I saw him more as kind of, I don't know, I guess maybe a jackal-like thing, or if that at all.
I think the corresponding Egyptian god, it's a jackal head. I could be wrong.
So let's see. So according to Wikipedia, so grain of salt involved, but Wikipedia is usually well edited. In art, Set is usually depicted as an enigmatic creature referred by Egyptologists as the Set animal, a beast not identified with any known animal, although it could be seen as resembling an aardvark, an African wild dog, a donkey, a hyena, a jackal, a pig, an antelope, a giraffe, or a fennec fox. So I think based on the art here, they clearly went with the African wild dog interpretation of that. Which it's part of the carousel you've got going. It's not what I'm looking at the moment, but there's definitely images where you can see how dog-like he is. Now the wings, I think, is specifically, so Britannica says that Set was a trickster, a sky god, lord of the desert, and master of storms, disorder, and warfare.
Oh, so
So
that
I
ties
think that
into
explains
Flood.
the wings, and it might actually explain what was going on with Flood as well.
Mm.
Which I wasn't aware of that when we were talking about it. I just brought this up
Yeah.
when you mentioned the appearance.
It's edutainment without actually telling you that it's edutainment. It made you go look it up on Wikipedia yourself.
Right, right. Which I don't. I mean, I think mostly like Pyramids of Mars. I think mostly leaned into the mummy angle and not really like
Mm.
what the god set was originally, like in
Yeah.
mythology. But
Yeah, like there is like a sort of jackal-ish head at points, but it's
right,
clearly like still image
it's
stuff.
it's like it's more like if you were doing like an image of Set on a sarcophagus. Right, it was the
Mm-hmm.
kind of like that sort
Mm.
of like headpiece
Or the death
rather than
mask
like
of a
a
pharaoh type
yeah.
deal.
Yes, exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah.
Mm.
And actually, that mask in the original serial was way creepier too, because it reminded me of the Cunny Sao episode of Tales from the Dark Side, the TV series, or Cuddy Sao, I believe, which itself was terrifying. Probably the scariest episode of that entire TV series as well. But yeah.
And yeah, when I was watching the episode, I was kind of confused of whether like Susan Triad and the dog dragon creature in the in unit were both supposed to be Sutek. But then I
Mm.
refreshed myself on the summary of Pyramids to Mars and realized, oh, he had these servants I forgot about who he could control and empower with the touch of death,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Mm.
exactly what's happening with Triad in
Yeah.
that scene.
Well, even
Yeah,
Harbin. Oh, sorry.
plus is I didn't catch it the first time through, but on the second go around I noticed that there are some lines right near the end where it's clear that both Susan Triad and the dog head thing, Sutek, are both saying the same thing at about the
Yeah.
same time. So
Yep.
sort of speaking through her, I guess.
And that's why I thought maybe it was a split consciousness.
Mm.
But yeah, the speaking through makes more sense.
Don't forget that Harbinger in her little poem or her little reading actually recites exactly how Susan Triad was the vessel was seduced and like made to kind of be controlled by Sutek. She
I
goes
thought
over
the
that
vessel
whole.
was the TARDIS.
I kind of took it to mean Susan, although it could mean the TARDIS too if you see
They were
the TARDIS
yeah,
as.
because he was traveling using the TARDIS as a vessel.
Mm-hmm. But I see like Susan herself as a vessel for Sutek, for the power of Sutek.
Mm.
That so maybe vessel could mean multiple things in this instance.
Right. Okay. Anything else to say on that before we move on?
Nope, that's it for me.
All right. So my least favorite scene. Let's see. Not what we have we not discussed? I think at this point, and it's relatively minor in the grand scheme of things, is the scene where Carla decides to go along because it's just so out of the blue. She's like, "Oh, you work at Unit? Oh, well, my mom's involved. Oh yeah, well, if your mom's involved, my mom's going to get involved. I mean, Ruby's mom's. I'm like, why? Like, you don't know this girl. You don't know her
Yeah.
mom. Like,
Mm.
I haven't like. I don't think it was like, oh, they have black people at Unit. Like, I don't think that's what they were going for.
Mm.
It's almost like she's like, oh well, if there are mothers there, then I'm going to be there, even though there's mothers in
Yeah.
every military facility in
Right.
2024. So I'm just
Yeah.
really not sure where she's going with that line of thought.
Mm. Yeah,
Um,
it kind of comes off very well. We need to have Carla's mother be alone. So
like, I mean,
I guess.
I could even see her like, well, if you're going to do this and I know how important this is to you, I'm going to go
Mm,
with you. That would have made sense and would have had the same outcome.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
don't
Or you.
understand why that had, unless they were like, oh, well, we need to make sure that Rose is active in the episode and is not just there because as a cameo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like even just having like maybe it be Ruby's idea of like I want you to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Because like this is, this is a very important, potentially a very important moment in my life. I want you to be there.
Right.
Like that would be something. But yeah, as it stands, she's just like, well, I guess I have to go because my apartment needs to be almost empty.
I mean,
um,
and you can, she's so forthright with everything that you can't even say that she's making an excuse to go and give Ruby
right,
support,
yeah.
because she would just be like, I'm going and giving you support. She wouldn't need to be like, oh well, I need to think up this excuse to go to this top secret facility, and I can't let you know that I want you to succeed and help out. But
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Final thoughts, Alex.
Yeah, this is, I mean, like it's solid enough. I mean, it's definitely a thing of like we'll see where we go from here. I like it. This is I'll put it this way. So far this season, 73 yards is the one that's like I thought it, like the more I thought about it, the more negative my thoughts got. This one that's sort of happening, but not to that degree. Like there are things that kind of bug me here and there. Like one thing I decided not even to really bother bringing up, but was something that did bug the shit out of me, is that we did not even get a throwaway line about where the hell Donna and 14 are. When there's a good setup for it, because 15 asks Rose,
doing.
how's your mom, how's your uncle? And so I'm like, you could have easily had, oh, they're in Italy, they're in the US, they're somewhere. And you could just reason, oh, well, of course they wouldn't be able to come back for the next episode because they might have gone there normally rather than using the TARDIS, so they can't get back in time.
That's a good point, because I was more annoyed that they drew attention to the fact that Donna wasn't there, because I was like, I can ignore Donna not being there, but then you drew attention to it.
Yeah. Especially because, and I've had some pushback on this, but to me, this level of a threat, there is no way that the 14th Doctor would be able to overlook that. So if he isn't in the next episode, then you better cook up a good reason why. Because that would make no sense, because this is being treated as, to me, what should be a multi-Doctor threat.
Based on the trailers, he dies and they don't have him back until they get to collect the Dragon Balls.
But yeah, it's just like, I don't know. That bugged me in the sense that like I could get a lot of more minor threats, the Doctor being like, it's good, the other Doctor's got it. But this one, I'm like, okay, yeah, no. This is very like the problem people have with like the shared universes and stuff, where it's like, well, why aren't they helping? And it was easier for me to write off no Ace, because they would, they've got their own lives to live. They're probably doing other stuff, but they do work with Unit, even if they don't work directly for Unit, and I think Ace's company has been canonized, so she's got that to do. But in that respect, it's kind of funny that neither of them were even referenced in this episode. But at least they didn't call attention to them not being there.
Mhm.
Whereas with Donna and 14, they technically bring them up. So it's just like, I don't know. That, and like, maybe something will happen in the next episode that explains that maybe there will be a shock tenant appearance. I don't know. But, there's just little things that would have been very easy to just throw in a line very quickly to be like, oh yeah, they're over off here doing this. Or, they went off world because he's got a TARDIS still. Maybe he wanted to take Donna somewhere nice. I don't know. Like, would have been very easy. But yeah, we'll see where we go from here. But I'm a bit more cautious going into Empire of Death than I normally am for two-parters. So that's it from me.
All right, Aaron, final thoughts.
But the more issues people point out, the lower my score gets. Like, I was going to initially be excited because, yay, Sutekh is back. He's a big bad and everything, and but maybe he could have come back, and because I couldn't quite remember what happened in Pyramids of Mars. Maybe that's what they're hoping for. Is that people haven't rewatched or haven't gotten the chance to think about it lately, but something that really stuck out to me is that I really enjoy the hole that Mel is kind of filling now that Sarah Jane Smith isn't around. It feels like she's kind of stepped into that role and is kind of the confident companion that you can always count on and stuff. So, and she's kind of strong. She also fills in she can fill in for the nosy reporter. And she also has a bit of technological kind of knowledge to her too. So I really enjoy that. And what else? I also enjoy how the rift between Kate and the Doctor is a kind of a slow build-up. You see the Doctor kind of insulting. At first, they run up to each other and they hug and they're like so happy to see each other. And then, like, slowly throughout the episode, you see him, like, what do you call it? Insulting, like, the time window, granting Unit access to Ruby's mother without telling Kate right what's going on. She's like, wait a second, this is a secure facility. Talking about...
I almost mentioned that as my favorite scene, because it was such a Doctor Brigadier moment where he's like, I don't care about your red tape. This is a friend of mine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Getting one of Kate's men killed, even though Unit soldiers kind of, were dying like flies back in the 70s. Yeah, and yeah, so there's a reason why she's not exactly besties with him, and that she shouldn't be running up into his arms and giving him hugs necessarily, because he does kind of make her life a living hell sometimes. So, and we're kind of reminded of that here in this episode, whereas in previous episodes it's just like, oh yes, we're helping the Doctor's former companions and everything. So yeah, I enjoyed it, but probably not as much as I maybe should have. I don't know. Very tense too with the final reveal of the bad guy. That's it for me.
Oh, damn it, Aaron.
What?
You brought up Sarah Jane.
Yes.
And now all I can picture is how good this episode would have been if Elizabeth Sladen was alive to act in it. Like, just imagine Sarah Jane's reaction to Sutekh returning.
Yeah. Because she was the companion in Pyramids of Mars.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah.
So moving on to what I was gonna talk about, I'm very glad that we're not rating this because I don't know what I would rate this on its own, and I really need to see the second part to know how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's definitely things I feel mixed about. There's things that I want to see. They seem like they're building up to something, and if they're building up to something good, then that's great. And if they're actually not building up to anything, then that would be an issue. Like what you just mentioned about the Doctor and Kate being, a good example of this seems like it's going somewhere. Is it actually going somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
And I hope to see where it's going. Um, yeah, like I said, I wasn't a huge fan of the big bad being Sutek. But just because it's not the decision I would have made, it doesn't mean that they can't get a good episode out of it. So let's see what this episode is. Um, I do hope we get a little more explanation of Susan Twist, or if it's just literally, well, she's been a manifestation of Sutek's power over time and space. The weird thing about that would be that Susan Twist was showing up for Ruby before Ruby met the Doctor.
Mm.
And that would be although maybe it was the same night she met the Doctor, now that I think about it. Because I think he was at that same Christmas party. And yeah, do anything else that I have to say? Um, yeah, mostly I hope the next episode goes. It follows up on things well, which is a good segue into predictions. Alex, what do you think is going to happen in the finale?
Um,
I don't know why I'm still keeping time on my phone. We've been streaming for like an hour and a half, and there's no way we're going to spend half an hour on prediction.
mm,
Oh, just
So we've
you
been making
wait.
good time. It'd be nice if more of our podcasts were this length.
mm, God. I mean, as far as Mrs. Flood goes, the fact that she had that one scene and then dropped out of the episode entirely, I guess whatever the deal with her is, we'll obviously be finding that out next time. Honestly, the more I think about it, the more I think she is Ruby's mother,
Mm-hmm.
and that she planted Ruby knowing that this would happen somehow. And that Ruby is the key to defeating Sutek this time.
So
Like, I
Mrs. Flood is
could be
actually
wrong,
a good guy.
but potentially, like, I could be wrong. This is just pure speculation anyway, but never know. Because like again, if she was just another like minion of Sutek, then it's weird that we didn't cut back to her when like Harbinger and Susan Triad both went all somewhat skull face. To have her do the same. So I would assume that she is a different entity of some kind. Hell, maybe she's gonna somehow turn out to be Susan. Who knows?
My brain went to, maybe she's the trickster. She just really doesn't want Sutek to win.
Her power is spoiling.
Yeah, I don't know, but like that's the best theory I've got as far as that goes, but I would think that like how the Toymaker was brought back and then ultimately defeated in a way where it's like, yeah, we're probably never breaking this villain out again. That's probably what we're going to get this time, which is funny in a way because going back through Pyramids of Mars was a pretty definitive defeat. But I guess by virtue of being the entity he is, there's a little more wiggle room for Sutek coming back. But yeah. Aside from that, I don't think I've got anything.
That reminds me of something that I had meant to say during the review, but I forgot. So in RTD's first season, he brings back the Daleks. In his second season, he brings back the Cybermen. In his third season, he brings back the Master. In his fourth season, he brings back Davros. In his fifth year, that's not a season, he brings back Rassilon. In his sixth year, that's not a season, he brings back the Toymaker. And then in his next season, he brings back Sutek. Somehow, over 20 years, he has kept up this tradition of bringing back one villain per year. But what do I predict? So I guess I saw this theory on Twitter that Ruby is going to go into the TARDIS. It is going to basically become the memory TARDIS that we've seen in Tales of the TARDIS, and is going to use that, in some way toward resolving everything that's going on. And I think it's a really good theory. Right now, we know that the key to winning everything is this woman on another planet, and the regular TARDIS is under the control of Sutek. So I think at this point we can say, the Doctor needs another way off planet, and if David Tennant is not around to give him a lift, that would be the other option. So. I don't really have another specific thing other than, I think they're going to do a reset button. Because they don't do Dragon Balls in Doctor Who. So the only way, if the Doctor is going to go back in time and prevent Sutek from killing people, that probably is going to mean a Nicholas Briggs reset button. And, oh yeah, that's right. I do not need to bring up the ratings sheet, even though I brought it up.
Oh, I never gave my predictions.
Yeah, I was going to say.
You didn't? Oh, nope. Sorry, did I skip you?
Yep.
My bad. All right, then go ahead, give your predictions.
Oh yeah, I've got actually a few different ones. So I'm going to call it now. I think it's a bootstrap paradox. I think the lady in the cloak is actually Ruby delivering herself to the church.
Then where would she get the baby?
I don't know. Where do you get this donut? I would have loved to see if it were River Song and find out that Ruby is actually the Doctor's daughter, because we do mention, like, how does the Doctor have a daughter without, or have a granddaughter without a child to begin with? And he's like, oh, he just kind of hand waves it. Oh, it's the life of a Time Lord and stuff like that. But I mean, what if Ruby really is his daughter and like Susan is her daughter? And that, so that would be interesting if they actually followed through with it, and also have a I guess appearance by what's her face, the actress who plays
Carol Ann Ford.
No,
Alex
Kingston. Yeah, Alex Kingston. It would be neat to see Alex Kingston return, just for like a split second. And then she can't really reveal her face because she supposedly has already said her goodbye to the Doctor and everything. Although we'll see. Also, I don't know if the father and the mother were a part of it, but they do mention the other. So is this possibly the Cartmel master plan rearing its head again? I was going to say its ugly head. Its head again, because I thought it was an interesting idea, and it's something that they've toyed with off and on for like years now. The Doctor being this supreme being known as the Other, one of the Time Lord gods. So
I will say my mind went there initially, but looking back at both watching back and reading the full quote back, it's that's leading into the reveal of Sutek, because and standing on high is the mother, father, and other of them all.
Yeah.
So seems that that's referring to Sutek.
I guess Harriet forgot the word parent.
But yep, those are my predictions.
All right, so then that is what we have to say about The Legend of Ruby Sunday. Don't forget to let us know in the comments what you thought of this week's episode. Don't forget to like the video if you've listened this far, and subscribe on YouTube to get our exports each week, or follow us on Twitch to get notified when we stream. Next time, we continue the new season of Doctor Who with the finale, Empire of Death, written by Russell T Davies, and starring Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor and Millie Gibson as Ruby Sunday.